down the left field line. It is gone!
Live from the downtown Carmi studio, it's the Saturday Morning Sports Show. Live on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROY, and online worldwide at WRUL.com. Good morning, sports fans, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROY. Cole Carter and Chris Myers after the Carmi-White County Bulldogs to take their first loss of the season last night on the road against a very good Johnson City football team. The Indians improved to 8-0, and they are the Black Diamond Conference champions here in 2022. Real quick, want to thank all of our sponsors: Little Giant Grocery Outlet, Rice Motor Company, Hell Body Shop, First Mid Bank and Trust, Wabash Christian Therapy, Bush & Associates CPAs, People's National Bank, Hamilton Memorial Hospital District, Rush Appliance and Furniture, Citizens National Bank of Albion, Nancy J. Winters CPA, Cherry Street Automotive, Farrell Hospital, Taylor Eye Care, Will Rock Transport, Wabash General Hospital, and Invenergy. Chris, we were talking before we went on air, and it really came down. Final score is 37-28, but it came down to Carmi just simply missed too many opportunities. They missed two-point conversions that ended up being vital. A bad snap over the head on the first possession of the game. Too many small mistakes that are rare for this Carmi team that came back to hurt them.
Yeah, it was just, going into this game, the environment in itself was going to be tough. Johnson City, another 7-0 football team, strong up front. They have a young man as about 6'4", 280, going to play college football as a defensive lineman who was just a force. So the game was going to be tough in itself, number one. But the just uncharacteristic mistakes, you hit the nail on the head there, Cole, that the Bulldogs just hadn't done all year. Penalties, there were at least 3 or 4 occasions where we had miscommunications, just handing the ball. Warren Leggett turned the hand the ball off and no one to hand to, so we had to take several losses on plays like that. The turnover on the first series of the game, our opening possession, we were 3 and out, just nothing doing on any of our first 3 run plays, and we go to punt. Snap goes over the punter's head. They recover it at the 2, and we just, give them a gimme touchdown to start the game. You just can't dig yourself holes like that against good football teams, and unfortunately that's what the Bulldogs did last night. Just uncharacteristic things we hadn't seen all season, and when you do them against a good team, they just come back to bite you.
Yeah, 7 penalties last night against the Bulldogs for 57 yards, and that really doesn't show in that, as I believe it was 2 long runs that were called back, and at the end of the game, 1 touchdown run was called back against the Bulldogs for a holding penalty. And again, it's a Carmi team that has not made many mistakes this year, and they just came at a bad time last night.
Yeah, they were both the critical possessions. I mean, if you look at the ebb and flow of this game, we had dug ourselves the 7-0 hole within, the opening 3 minutes when their first score was at 9:05, so we're barely 3 minutes into the game, and we give a touchdown. And that was devastating there. But to the Bulldogs' credit, they recovered nicely. They caught their breath, put together a good long drive, and Isaac King rung on a 3rd and long, finally broke a long run to the outside, and we got on the board at 7-6. Then in the second quarter, it just seemed like all the momentum in the world was coming to us. We had to stop them. What we thought was a fumble. Turned out it wasn't. So they kicked to us. That next possession, we drive down and score again. Draxod got in the end zone after a couple big runs by Isaac King, and then the ensuing JC possession, they fumble, we recover.
First play, they fumble,
and that was, I want to say we were inside their 30-yard line when
at
we got that.
18 in the very next play,
and
they took it in.
We convert that. It's 22-7. We get the conversion, and we're all thinking, okay, Carmi's going to do what they've done all year. Not that the game was over by any means, but you kind of took a breath and said, okay, we got some cushion here. We just need to keep playing solid defense, get them off the field again, get this ball, and have a chance to really put a pad in this lead. And it just broke loose from there, just the unexpected. That next possession, Johnson City, 1 play, Boston Payton, a 68-yard touchdown run. What had happened was the opening possessions, Johnson City comes out in this, similar to Fairfield, which we talked about, Cole, this foot-to-foot formation double wing, makes it very difficult for your linebackers to see in the backfield, to see what's going on, a lot of play action. So when they were just running these power plays where they were pulling linemen from the backside. The wingback that went in motion was getting the ball on a toss, and that's where the plays were going. And it kind of lulled us to sleep because they hadn't handed the ball to the fullback. Normally the fullback was just a lead blocker. Well, that next play was 7:05 in the second quarter. They hand that ball to the fullback, and there wasn't one defender on our defense that even knew he had the ball. It was like the old
it was him and Trayton Vickers for the whole 68 yards.
It was like the old fumble Rooski where you hand the ball to an offensive lineman, which is now illegal. It was almost like a trick play. He was just untouched, and until Vickers noticed him about 20 yards down the field, I mean, no one knew where the ball was. Yeah. It was just an absolutely devastating run against the Bulldogs. Gave Johnson City the spark of life they needed. We go a 3-and-out. They get the ball back, and the exact same play happens. Mm-hmm. Their next possession, Evan Sanders, 74-yard run, the same play. This time he broke a couple tackles. At least we saw it. But just like that, the game was tied. And it just how quick and how sudden, it was just such a shock. You just never felt like we gained any momentum back. Now, we did, to our credit, on our next possession, Isaac King had a beautiful run, broke a run up the middle, broke at least 5 or 6 tackles, and got us a score. And we missed the conversion, though, and we were up, I believe it was 28-22 at half.
That was the halftime score.
Yeah, so that gave us some momentum back, but we held them out right before half. They had a long drive going. They don't pass well. They're not a passing team either, so they, with little time left before halftime, they had to drop back and pass. Big sack by Gavin Payton held them out, but you just knew they were getting the opening possession. It just didn't feel like we were doing much to stop them at that point. Once they busted those 2 long runs, their confidence in their ground game just went through the roof, and momentum swung at that point.
Well, and talking about a game that just had so many peaks and valleys. Football is a game of momentum and energy, and especially in a tough place to play like that. For as many Bulldog fans that were there last night, when it was 22-7 and had the halftime lead, Bulldogs got a big stop to start the third quarter. It felt like Carmi had momentum, but like I said, in a loud atmosphere like that, Johnson City, as soon as something good happened, all momentum went back to their sideline.
Oh, yeah, and that's a good point, because we were up 28-22 at half. JC came out in the third quarter. They drove down to about our 10-yard line.
Well, had a great kickoff return to about the Carmi 35.
And that was huge.
And Carmi stopped them on 4th and goal.
Yeah, that may have been the difference in that second half, because they started with that kind of field position. They almost broke it. They started at our 30. And, I mean, what more could you ask for? They had a lot of confidence in their ground game anyway, and you give them that kind of field position to start the third quarter. To our credit, we did hold them out. They got inside the 10, and I believe we stopped them around the 6-yard line. So we had to start with tough field position. I believe we more or less went a 3-and-out on that, gave them the ball right back to them, and they drove down again. But we had another situation. It was 4th and about 7. They're in swing possession. And we just need to stop them there again. And Isaiah Watson, just absolutely took over that second half. He's another all-conference running back to the likes of our own Isaac King.
I mean, how many times do we have Watson 2 arms on him in the backfield, and he somehow turned a 2-yard loss to an 8-yard gain?
Yeah, and not to go over your scoring recap here, Cole, but that was 4th and 7. And he got 8 yards. And at least you're right. 3 or 4 Bulldogs had their hands on. I thought we were going to get him down, hold him out, and it just didn't happen. After that, they never looked back. We just had no answer defensively, and it was the Isaiah Watson show from that point on.
And the biggest thing for me, Chris, and with the way these two teams run the football and the way that the Indians were putting together long drives, Carmi only had, maybe 4 second-half possessions? I mean, I can't think of if that. And you see the 2 zeros in the third and fourth quarter for Carmi. JC scored 8 in the third and 7 in the fourth. But, Carmi never was able to put together a good drive there in that second half. They took the football all the way to the Johnson City 38 on their possession when it was 30-28 there late in the fourth. They tried to run that fake punt play with Mitchell Edwards. The Indians did a great job recognizing it, but besides getting that far to about, like I said, their 35, 36-yard line, Carmi just had a hard time moving the football in the second half.
Exactly. And now we did have that one possession where Isaac broke that long run and got deep in the territory. His call back to holding. And then we get the yardage back, and I believe we converted first down. Well, here comes another holding penalty. Just 2 brutal holding penalties. That stymied us as well. But on that fake punt, that was a tough position. We were 4th and 12, in that territory. And it's do we punt, try to pin them deep, or do we go for this? And the decision on the fake punt, for a second, I thought we were going to have it. It was the old trick play where everyone comes out, but one of the wideouts stays right next to the sideline, turns his back from the field.
Staying in the field of play.
Right, exactly. Thank you. He turns like he's talking to the coach, and I looked over and I thought, okay, we've got it. Mm-hmm. We've got it. All of a sudden, their safety starts pointing. He sees it. Literally 2 seconds before we snap it, he recognized it and ran over there. Had he not recognized that, we may have got that.
Game-saving play for the Indians. And
it was.
You talk about the mistakes Carmi made, rare mistakes. You got to tip your cap to the way the Indians played. Yeah. They played a great football game, and coming into the game, we're thinking, okay, how good is this JC team? They barely beat Cesar last week. And my questions got answered last night. This is a very good football team that I think can win a playoff game or two.
Oh, absolutely. We point out the mistakes that were made. Not to harp on things, but the bottom line is Johnson City is a good football team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they beat us at the line of scrimmage last night. Anyone who knows football, any coach will tell you, Coach Simon will tell you, that they just outplayed us last night, plain and simple. After the second quarter, that second half was all Johnson City. We didn't score. They scored 2 touchdowns. Their defensive line was dominant that second half. It was just they outplayed us, plain and simple.
Looking at stats from last night, thanks to Toby Brown and his crew. Isaac King, a monster game for him. 34 carries, 249 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jackson On had 13 carries, 49 yards, and 2 scores. Andrew Dotson had 3 carries for 23 yards. Warren Legg, 4 carries for 2 yards. For the Indians, they were led by Evan Sanders, who had 4 carries for 101 yards and 1 score. Boston Payton, 5 carries, 77 yards, and 1 score. And ran over, Watson's stats. He had 18 carries for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. Neither team, I believe, completed a pass in the game last night. Warren Legg was 0 for 4. But that's about what we expected. We knew neither team was going to be able to throw the football a lot, and you'll hear it from Kurt Simon here in a minute. Carmi got the football back down by 9 with about 3 minutes left. And Chris, this just is not a football team that can score touchdowns late in a game like that.
No, we are not. It's just plain and simple. With the style of football we play, if you fall behind by more than a score, less than 5 minutes playing a game, you're in trouble. We are not a 2-minute offense, spread the ball. I mean, you have to have some urgency. I kind of thought maybe we had more of a 2-minute drill where we're just getting on the ball, not huddling. We were huddling. It cost a lot of time. To our credit, we did. There was a pass interference call late. We got the ball moved downfield. Isaac had broken a long run. I think he almost got in the end zone there late, and they called it back to holding. That could have given us a chance for an onside kick, and who knows. But when a team takes away your bread and butter and forces you to do things that you're not good at, it's not a good situation, to put it mildly. And the Bulldogs found themselves down 9 points with less than 3 minutes. It was just too big of a hill to climb.
Here is what head coach Kurt Simon had to say after the loss last night.
Coach, it comes down to that's a dang good football team right there, and they made some plays to win the game down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean they had the 2 big plays. You can talk about games like this where it's going to be physical and you're going to run at one another. Neither of us throw it very effectively. You can't give up big plays. Field position was an issue for us. The second half we'll start out kicking it to them and letting them get it returned all the way on, all the way down to the 30. Now all of a sudden there's not going to be that many possessions, and we're backed up in our own end. So give them credit. They're a great football team. And, I told the kids we just got to go back and we'll watch film tomorrow morning and do the best we can to get better. But this is the type of team you're going to see 2 weeks from now in the playoffs.
Yeah. We just, we had the sense when it was 22-7, we'd gotten to turnover, punch that in, it's 22-7. Not that anyone was going to sleep, but we were all thinking, okay, we got a little breathing room here, the momentum. And then, like you say, good teams do good. They made 2 big plays. That fullback dive, I think the defense, they'd been running those little tosses and powers. one side or the other, and you have to honor it. You have to concentrate on them. They just snuck those plays.
Their offensive line is a really good offensive line. They do a great job. Their scheme that they use this year is fit well for their personnel. So give them credit for those. Yeah. But to win a big game like this, you can't give up big. I mean, we gave them the first one. We snapped the punt over our head and gave them a short field at the 10-yard line or whatever it was. But those things you got to learn from. You got to learn from it. And it's a great game to play late in the year, knowing that the playoffs start in 2 weeks, and that's the type of game you're going to be in right there. So you got to learn from it. And we still have one regular season game left. It's our senior night, and we're going to prepare as good as we can this week, like we normally do, and come back and try to play a really good game and get geared up and ready. We may be right back here in week 2 if we can win the first round.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Coach. I know all you can do at this point, you shake off the dust, pick yourselves up, come back next week, got a great opportunity. Hey, 8-1 is a great position to be in the first round. Come out, take care of business against Flora on your senior night. But what lesson do you tell your team? I mean, I know they're obviously heartbroken. This is the first time we felt this feeling this year. So, I mean, obviously it hits hard. But you just got to keep going. I mean, there can't be no quitting. And we go back and, like I said, we do the same thing. Cause there were some times tonight, and give credit to Johnson City because they got a good football team, but we were not going to the right place when we were blocking. It wasn't just that we were missing blocks. They had some good players, and they're tough to block, but we assignment-wise, we were off a little bit. And you can't do that in one of these type games. So. Our kids are good kids. They'll go back to we'll go back to work tomorrow, and I'm confident that they will pull together. I mean, we didn't put the ball on the ground, other than the snap over the punter or whatever. But so there were some things that we can draw out here that were positives. But tonight it was Johnson City's night, and they're a good football team, and we gotta go back to the film, watch it, and get better this week.
And Chris made a good point. As much as this felt like a playoff game, obviously when you lose a playoff game, it's over. But at this point, you guys still have a chance to finish 8-1. The future is still there for you guys to make a deep playoff run. Kind of, how do you still kind of preach that to the guys in the locker room right now? Obviously, they're heartbroken, but the fact that you still got to, you can turn things around next week.
Well, I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, or there's no secret phrase or whatever. We know that it's a long season. You got to put yourself, our goals at the beginning of the year are always to win enough games to get to the playoffs and then win a conference championship. And then, it's week in and week out. You go one game at a time. You'll learn from it. You'll learn when we watch the film tomorrow and you go back to work and know that we got to get better against these good teams like this. It's a matter of, everyone gets knocked down, but you got to get back up and keep going. And, we've been knocked down once this year so far, and we need to do a good job of learning from our mistakes and, be ready to come back out next week and play a good game and then get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I know that's one thing you're going to do. This group of seniors, you've talked about them all year. They're somewhere they've never been.
Yeah.
They're going to wake up tomorrow, they're going to brush this off, and they're going to go right back to work, and you learn from it, and you still have a great opportunity. Still a lot to play for.
Absolutely.
And we know your kids are going to recover, and we're going to get back on our feet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, again, you can go back and look at game, but the big plays, the field position, it's just a big deal. And then late in the game, I mean, we are a team that is not in a position to spread you out and throw it all over. We can't get behind. We can't get behind, 2 scores. And then when we know that, and they're the same way, where that's just not what you just can't do that. So we'll go back to work. We'll go back to work and keep a positive attitude and just keep working.
All right, Coach, thanks for your time. Best of luck the rest of the
night.
night.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right.
Again, the Bulldogs lose last night. Final score against Johnson City, 37-28. And the Indians, they are the Black Diamond Conference champions here in 2022. Other scores from around the area last night: Sestervalier takes down Flora 28-12. The Red Devils clinch a playoff spot. Fairfield shuts out Edwards County 48-0. Hamilton County all over Vienna Goreville 74-30. El Dorado defeats CZR 30-28. In the Little Illini Conference, Alney defeats Newton 28-21, and the Tigers clinch a playoff spot. Robinson defeats Paris 40-21. Casey Westfield and Marshall will play tonight. In the River to River, Carterville clinches the conference championship with a 49-14 win over Pinckneyville. Nashville clinches a playoff spot with a 28-21 win over DuQuoin. Benton over Murfreesboro 31-19. Harrisburg over Heron 42-14, and West Frankfort over Massac County 42-21. So that's some scores from around the area. Last night over in Indiana, it was week 9 for them, last week of the regular season. Jasper defeats Vincent's Lincoln 43-13. It was Mount Vernon all over Washington 56-0. North Posey defeats Pike Central 41-13. Harrison over Bosse 28-12. Evansville North shuts out Central 48-0. Wrights over Mater Dei 14-7. Memorial over Castle 28-19. And Gibson Southern defeats Boonville 39-21. We'll step aside for our first break of the morning. We'll have a couple of special guests on the show when we come back right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROY. The Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROI. Cole Carter and Chris Myers live from the downtown Carmi studio, being joined by a couple of special guests this morning, Mrs. Sarah Haley and Mrs. Arianna Watts. Ladies, thank you for getting up early and swinging by this morning.
Thank you for having us this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
And so the reason why you're here, obviously there's a big event going on here 2 weeks from yesterday, October 28th, at the high school here in Carmi. It is the 14 News Sunrise School Spirit. Those of you that recall, the last time we did this was 5 years ago, I do believe, back in 2017. Tell the fans at home about what the Saturday Morning Sports Show, or not Saturday Morning Sports Show, Sunrise School Spirit is.
Yeah, so Sunrise School Spirit is something that 14 News does. They do a live on-air pep session, but also the big event is that we bring in canned foods. And so it is a competition with all of the schools that have been invited. It's 8 different schools, and the goal is to get the amount of pounds to feed our community. Mm-hmm. And so we do a live on-air pep session, and it's really a fun event, and we get the community involved, and we try to get everybody to bring in the foods. And the last time we had this event, we raised 35,000 pounds, which that put us in second place. And so that's why they asked us to come back, because they knew that we could bring it, and we could our community could come together and bring the food and feed our community.
Well, and fans that will recall last time it happened, there was a thunderstorm that hit Carmi about 4 in the morning, and the first hour or 30 minutes of the pep session was in complete darkness. Everybody had their flashlights on, and so there's no doubt that Channel 14 remembered who we were in terms of the energy we brought that morning. But the biggest thing, obviously the pep session is fun, and I know there's a lot of incentives for the kids if they raise so much food. I think Mr. King's going to get his ears pierced, or football players are going to shave their heads. But at the end of the day, that's all fun, but what's most important is what we're doing for the community.
Yeah, and Mr. King really highlighted that yesterday with the kids, just talking to them about their purpose, giving back to the community, giving back to people who would need this food, and how we've had ones in those situations before. So really trying to get the kids to dig down deep and think about how this is for a bigger reason than just themselves.
Can you talk about the history of this, how this came about, where this all originated from, and how the idea kind of spread throughout the tri-state?
This was just an activity that 14 News decided to do, an event, and so they started, I'm not exactly sure if they started in 2015 when we first did it, but we did it in 2015, and then they asked us 2 years later, because in 2015 we had 28,000 pounds, so we had a really good turnout, and then in 2017 that's when we had 35,000 pounds. So it was just an idea that they had because they wanted to feed the community, and they thought that this would be a good way to do that by bringing everybody together in the morning at 6 a.m. And you think, hey, that's early, but really there's so much energy. And Cole, I'm sure you remember because you were part of that last time. There's so much energy, and I promise it will be the most fun that you will have at 6 a.m.
That's awesome.
But obviously this is an event that's not just for the high school students or junior high. This is open to the entire Carmi community.
Yeah. Community members, of course, are encouraged to come. We hope to fill the stands with students, staff members, community members. Wear your maroon and white. Bring your cans, of course, and non-perishable items. Bring your signs, and it'll be a great time.
And more kind of a general question: does the food, does it stay here locally, or does it go to like a central location distributed to the tri-state? How do they do that?
Yeah, so it does go back to the Tri-State Food Bank because we might get several pallets of, for example, green beans. And so it would all need to go back to the Tri-State Food Bank. And so then our food banks are allowed to go every single month to Tri-State Food Bank anyway. And so on top of this, they get an extra percentage. So it will go back into the community a certain percentage.
Great.
So fans that are kind of wondering what is all going to take place that morning, do you guys have some sort of schedule that is set for Friday morning, or is it still kind of too far away? In case fans at home were wondering.
Yeah, we have a schedule. It is a pep session. We have several different games. So it will be, things like the underwear race, which is really popular. We have a hula hoop race. We try to get a lot of students involved, and community members can get involved as well. The physics class, they're making a Rube Goldberg, and so we will have that shown in the morning. And
a Rube Goldberg.
A Rube Goldberg is a set of simple machines
Okay.
put together to do a simple task.
All right.
So stay tuned for what that will look like.
Kind of like a blender.
Don't worry.
Simple machines.
We have a different like domino effect, and then our goal is to open up either balloons, or we do have an inflatable tube man, and so that
nice.
will be popped up at the end. So it's just a fun way to incorporate different classes as well. We will have a can display that Mrs. Zieren's classes will be taking care of. We have the drama department will be doing a little scene out of Seussical the Musical. And then we have the cheerleaders doing a really fun dance, and they're incorporating teachers into that. So we have a lot of people involved, and I think it's going to be a great morning.
Yeah, and don't worry, Chris, I had to look up what the Rube Goldberg was.
Okay. Thanks. You made me feel better there. I was like, Rube Goldberg.
People kept saying it, and I was like, I teach English, I don't know.
But for fans at home that are wondering, how they can bring in, obviously, again, the food drive is not just for students. Community members can bring those in. What do they got to do to donate some food?
Well, starting on Monday, the 17th, so coming up, that's when you can come into the high school. You can bring your pallets. You can bring any of your food. We'll have 2 trailers set up at the main back doors, and they'll be set up there all day, preferably in the morning drop-off, but we can also be available if we need to come out and get those going, and we'll have kids out there volunteering and helping to get those loaded, and you can always call the school if you need to, if you want to make a donation to the cause, and then we can call and get the cans delivered as well.
And corporate donations as well.
Yes, last time we had just businesses, they would give a donation, and then we would be able to go then to wherever and get the cans that way, and they would bring pallets to the school. So there's different ways. You can do monetary donations, or you can bring the food yourselves. Yeah.
Great.
And I know you guys had a list of certain items that you guys want to focus on. Do you have that with you?
Yeah, their top 10 right now are peanut butter, soup, canned fruit, canned vegetables, rice, tuna, beans, fruit juice, pasta, and pasta sauce.
Awesome. So, and I know Mr. King mentioned it yesterday there with all those students, but you guys do have some pretty fun incentives for how much food the school's able to bring in. Do you have that with you as well? Because I think the fans at home would be interested in hearing that.
Yeah, so we have, for the top donor, the student that's the top donor in the high school, they will get $100, and then they would get to pick a teacher to pie in the face. The second one would get $75, also pie a teacher in the face. Then it goes down to third is $50, fourth is $25, fifth is $25, and they also get to pie a teacher in the face. And then the 6 through 10 will get $10. If we have a certain number of students come, 200 students, we will have a movie day at the end. But the fun event is if we get 20,000 pounds, Mr. King will pierce his ear. We're hoping to do that on stage. And he will wear a paw print earring for a month. A shiny paw, yes. So that's going to look great. Mr. Haley is going to grow a mustache for a month.
How do you feel about that?
Honestly,
handlebar?
Yeah, a handlebar mustache. I mean,
Okay.
we're going kind of pretty
Elliott
dramatic.
type. Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
And yeah, I'm not happy about it, but if I'd rather him do that than pierce his ear or shave his head.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
I'm okay with that. If we do have 30,000 pounds of food, 5 football players, and we have a few football players who have agreed to that already. They're senior boys, but we don't want to reveal their names just yet. Some of them have to check with their girlfriends first, and so if they do that, we'll do that on stage. And then this is a joke, but at 50,000 pounds, Mrs. Watts may show some school spirit in some way and bringing the Bulldogs into naming her baby somehow.
Okay.
We had that on there kind of as a joke, and then it kind of got pushed out, and so we were like, well, maybe if we could get that, we'll figure out how to work Carmi in there, maybe as a nickname. I don't know. We are Bulldog fans.
Yeah.
But overall, is there anything else that you guys want to let the community know about this coming up on the 28th?
We just want you guys to come out and show your support. We promise it'll be a really fun time. We will have donuts in the morning, but we'll also have biscuits and gravy too that you can eat breakfast afterwards, and just come together as a community and just build that relationship with each other and just show the kids that you're support too. And we're just really excited for this event.
And one more thing for me to say, it'll be at 4:30, I believe. Sunrise comes on the TV. Is it 4:30 in the morning? Is what time they'll be there?
Yeah, 4:30 is when Sunrise comes on. They will arrive at 5:30. They want all students and community members to be there at 5:45, and then our first live shot is a little after 6. And so we have several live shots.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it works. So it's not just an hour long of us being live on TV. It's kind of they pop in and out during their morning newscasts, and 5-minute segment here, 5-minute segment there throughout the morning.
Right, and students will be able to be interviewed, which is always neat to do that on air, and so they'll be able to be interviewed, and then they'll just come in and out and do live shots and see what we're doing at that time. But there's just a lot of energy. If you remember, Cole, how much energy there is at that time.
I was going to say that allows the kids to survive being up that early. The energy from that gets them through the school day to follow that.
Absolutely.
Correct?
The adrenaline, too, of just checking back to see how many pounds did we get, how many pounds. Like the adrenaline through the day gets us through because it's exhausting, but I mean, really, it's so much fun to just see how excited the students are throughout the day. It's just like no other. Yeah.
That's great.
And if somebody has any questions or comments about should they contact the school or just want to talk to one of you two,
they can always contact the school, and they can get a hold of one of us and or email us. But getting a hold of the school would be the best way.
Awesome. All right, well, again, thank you so much, guys, for swinging in this one. We appreciate it. I'm looking forward to October 28th at the high school, 6 a.m., bright and early for the Sunrise School Spirit on 14 News. Again, thank you, Sarah and Arianna, for swinging by this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll take a short break right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROY.
It's internet.
The Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROI. Cole Carter and Chris Myers. A big thanks to Sarah, Haley, and Arianna Watts for swinging by this morning. And again, the 14 News Sunrise School Spirit will be at Carmi-White County High School on Friday, October 28th. You can, I'm pretty sure, go on the Carmi-White County High School Facebook page or call the school, one or the other, or maybe send me a message if you want to know some more information. But it should be a fun event for a great cause coming up here in a couple of weeks. So again, the big recap from last night: the Bulldogs fall to Johnson City 37-28. And something me and Chris forgot to mention is kind of where Carmi stands right now in terms of postseason and what things are going to look like. So obviously, a very winnable game next week against a Flora team that lost last night to Cesar-Valera. But the thing of it is, Chris, is Flora's now 4-4, and so when you're playing a team that's 4-4, it's happened a couple of times to Carmi. You're going to get their best effort because they're fighting for their playoff lives.
Yeah, and Flora, again, another team, an old NEC rival, come to town, and they're not going to come in here to lay down for any means at all. They are fighting for their playoff lives, and they know Carmi is coming off a very tough loss. So the thing for me, for the Bulldogs, is they're coming off a situation they've never been in this whole season, a loss. So picking yourself up after an emotional, just physically and mentally draining game like that you come out on the short end of the stick. I know they're heartbroken. Chance for the Black Diamond Conference Championship is gone, but still so much to play for. So the big challenge for the Bulldogs is just to pick themselves up, to put this behind you. You do it no matter what. Football is week to week. Next man up, next game up. And they just have to do their best, and I know they will. Just put this behind you, shake it off, come out and take care of business, because you still got a lot to play for.
Absolutely.
If you can get this win this Friday night, senior night, honoring all the fall athletes. It's always a great atmosphere, a great group of seniors this year. Come out and get this win against Flora this Friday night. You're 8-1, and you still have a good, solid position to be in the first round of the playoffs.
In terms of playoff seeding, with the loss last night, Carmi bumps from the 4 seed in 2A to now the number 11 seed in 2A. So how this works, the top 32 teams in the class make the playoffs, and they'll take, based on location, they'll divide that north and south. And so Carmi being the 11 seed right now, got to kind of predict maybe if they finish 8-1, looking at possibly a 5 seed or a 6 seed, probably at the worst case scenario. But Tom made a good point last night. There is a good chance, depending on how things fall, Carmi could possibly see that Johnson City team again, maybe in the second, maybe even third round, just depending. And we'll know the playoff pairings next Saturday night is when we'll figure things out. But if you're Carmi, a lot of teams, a lot of the top seeded teams in 2A are going to be on the northern side of the bracket. But there's only 5 unbeaten teams left in 2A. It's Decatur, St. Teresa, Johnson City, Maroa Forsyth, Seneca, and Bismarck Henning. Those remember Bismarck Henning, that was the team that beat Carmi back in 2017 in the playoffs. But there's no question, Chris, obviously you want to go 9-0, you want to win the conference, but you're in just as good as a spot being 8-1. You're going to play at home in the first round against possibly a 5-4, 6-3 team, and a really good chance to win that first round game.
Yeah, again, so much still to play for the Bulldogs, and all is not lost. You wanted to go in at 9-0, but you're going to be 8-1. You're still going to get a home game, and I'm saying that I fully believe the Bulldogs are going to take care of business this Friday. Come in at 8-1, get that first round home game. But again, a 5-4 and 6-3, you got to understand, and I think the people know this. Every team, even a first round team, is going to be a Johnson City quality team. There are no more 1-8, 0-9 teams on your schedule. It is all, once you get in the playoffs, every team is Johnson City level, and the Bulldogs are just going to have to be ready for that, even if it is a 5-4 team that comes in the first round.
So a couple of familiar faces the Bulldogs might be able to see in the first round. I mentioned Fairfield, they're 5-3. They have a very winnable game next week. I forget who they play week 9, but they should finish 6-3. Also, Chester, former Black Diamond Conference team, they have a winnable game next week. They're 5-3 also. So those two teams could finish 6-3, and there's a chance we could see Fairfield or Chester week 1 of the playoffs at home.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And once it's postseason, what happened to regular season? It's done. A brand new season starts. So if the Bulldogs can get a good draw, and they're just going to have to play their best football, in the first round, not to look too far ahead, every team is as good as you, or better. You treat it that way. And if the Bulldogs can get a victory in that first round, that's your goal, obviously. Second round, it could be, just depending how things are bracketed where the chips fall, it could be a rematch at Johnson City in round 2. But you got to get past round 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the Bulldogs will host Flora to wrap up the regular season on Friday night. That will be senior night. They'll honor all of the senior athletes and band members. Always a fun night, senior night, to recognize all of the seniors at Carmi White County High School. Looking ahead, the scores from this past week for the Bulldogs. Back on Tuesday, the Lady Bulldog volleyball team defeated Sisney 25-18 and 25-21. They then lost to Fairfield at home on Thursday, 25-21 and 25-14. They found out their postseason fate earlier this week. They are the 4 seed in the Mount Carmel, I guess you can call it the 4 seed in the southern part of the Pinckneyville sectional. So they're going to be in the Mount Carmel regional, which will begin on October 24th. Lady Bulldogs will have a first-round bye. They'll play the winner of Mount Carmel and Harrisburg on the 25th. If they win that game, they'll play the winner of Hamilton County against Benton and El Dorado on the 27th for a potential regional championship game. So one last week of regular season play for the Lady Bulldogs next week. Today, they are taking part in the Edwards County tournament throughout the day today, so best of luck to them. Back on Thursday, the Carmi Cross Country team took part in the Black Diamond Conference meet. A couple of runners were all conference for the Bulldogs. Gabby Conover finished in 5th place, so she is all conference. Allie Pollard finished 10th. Tanner Spence continues his fantastic season. He finished in 2nd place, so he's an all-conference runner as well. Trey Dixon 12th. Lane Conaway 15th. Jade Albright 28th. Luke Bullerjack 22nd. And Ian Mosier 34th. So a successful season for Coach Eric Dixon and the cross-country Bulldogs this fall. And again, of course, this Friday, Bulldogs will take on Flora at home. On Monday, the volleyball team will host Harrisburg. On Tuesday, they will travel to Grayville. On Wednesday, they will take part in the freshman-sophomore tournament at Norris City. And then next Saturday, they will wrap up the regular season at the Fairfield tournament. And somehow, a month from yesterday is when basketball begins. The first girls' basketball game is a month from yesterday. This fall sports season is flying by, and it's gonna be over here in a couple of weeks.
I wish it'd go forever, but
don't we all?
That's how it goes.
We'll go ahead and take our final break of the day. When we come back, we'll have our Terrible 10, the national sports segment, right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROI. Don't forget, coming up at 10 o'clock, we've got the Little Egypt Saturday Showcase with Luke Nelson on 97.3 WRUL. Those of you listening on 93.3 will go back to your regular programming here in a few minutes, but we'll go ahead and do our Terrible 10 picks and national sports segment here on the show. Chris is kicking my butt, to put it nicely, in terms of the Terrible 10 picks. His record is 44-16. I'm 32-28, but it's never too late turn things around. So we've got 5 very interesting college football games for today, and then 5 NFL matchups for tomorrow. Chris, we'll start with you today. Number 10, Penn State at number 5, Michigan. Who do you got?
That is a tough one because Penn State's playing well. Michigan's been pretty dominant. You know, they're a little sluggish against Indiana, but eventually took that over. I'm going to go ahead and say Michigan. Home crowd. 110,000 people.
Yeah, tough place to play.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. We are Penn State. I'm going with the new Lions here. Kevin Wolf, if you're listening, I apologize, but I'm going to go with the new Lions here to pull the upset there in Ann Arbor. Number 8, Oklahoma State at number 13, TCU. The Horned Frogs got a big win against Kansas last week. I'm going to go with the home team here. I'm going to go TCU.
I'm going to go ahead and go with the mullet. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. Their coach, Mike Gundy, and his infamous mullet. I'm gonna go with them.
Now, arguably the game of the week, but maybe even game of the year in the SEC. Number 3, Alabama at number 6, Tennessee. This one's tough. Bryce Young is playing today for Alabama. There's their Heisman quarterback is going to play today, and I think with that being the case, I'm going to go with Alabama.
That's going to help. Is he 100%?
Probably not.
That's the thing. You know, you saw what a difference he makes. They were not the same team without him last week as they survived that game against A&M. At the end of the day, though, I mean, it is very tempting for me to pick Tennessee because they're at home. Heupel's done a great job with that program. You know, getting them into a solid top 10. I mean, they just wiped the mat with LSU down in Baton Rouge last week. So, with that said, the old grumpy man, Nick Saban, is going to find a way to avoid the rat poison. He's going to pull this out.
Grumpy man, Nick Saban.
Old, grumpy, angry Nick Saban.
Number 16, Mississippi State at number 22, Kentucky. I will go with the home Wildcats here.
Boy, you know, and Kentucky was a team that I was really hoping to just shake things up this year after that Florida win, but they had some injuries. They really blew that game against Mississippi. You know, had a touchdown. They, got called back because they weren't set, and then just wheels are kind of falling off the wagon for Kentucky. So with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and go with Mississippi State.
Fair enough. Yeah. Final college pick for today, number 19, Kansas at Oklahoma. Man, talk about wheels falling off for Oklahoma. They have had a rough past couple of weeks. With that being the case, I will go with the Jayhawks here.
How odd is it? Normally, on normal years, this would be Oklahoma by 50 points.
Is this a basketball game we're talking about, picking Kansas?
Normally, yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and go with you, Cole, that the wheels falling off. I mean, that's an implosion going on at Oklahoma. And Kansas, to their credit, like I said, they had a chance to pull off that win against TCU last week, and they're just playing great football.
Looking at the NFL schedule for tomorrow and the noon game starting out, the Patriots at the Browns. I'm not sure if Mac Jones is going to play, so it could be a battle of backup quarterbacks. I'm going to go. This one's tough. Browns have had a couple of close losses, but I'll go with Cleveland here at home.
I'm going to do the same. I've had bad luck picking against the Patriots, but I'm going to try it one more time. So
it's always a tough team to pick against. biggest game in the noon segment, probably, the Jets, who have been a little bit of a surprise against the Packers, who surprisingly lost last week against the Giants. But back at home, I'm going to go with the MVP, Aaron Rodgers, here.
I'm going to say the same. I agree with you. He'll bounce back this week. They should pick up the win.
I think it'll be a good game. Like I said, the Jets, a little bit of a surprise this year, but I will go with the Packers. Another game going on in South Florida. It's the Minnesota Vikings at the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go, it's a noon game, so I'm going to go Kirk Cousins here. I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Is Tua still out for the Dolphins?
That I don't know. But you can imagine either one, whether it's him or Bridgewater, you don't know what to expect there.
That's close. The Vikings playing in the hot weather. I'll go ahead and agree with you and say the Vikings.
Not helping me make any ground here.
Yeah, a little iffy, but I'm agreeing with you too much.
Now, this game's going to be fun to watch. Tomorrow afternoon, 3:30 game.
Bills.
Buffalo Bills. This could be an AFC Championship preview. Yeah. Bills at the Chiefs. Man, watching the Bills just simply beat up my Steelers last week. They might be the best team in football, but it's a tough place to play.
And they're one missed throw against Miami away from being undefeated right
now. I'm going to go with Buffalo. They just look unbeatable.
I am too, just for the fact that I think, they've just got that it factor this year. Josh Allen has just stepped into elite status now. It's not going to be easy. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to give up the throne easily, but I think the Bills are going to pull this one out.
Yeah. So the Sunday night game tomorrow night also should be a good game. It's the Cowboys at the Eagles, 4-1 Dallas against 5-0 Philadelphia. Not sure if Dak Prescott's going to play in this game. If he does, he won't be 100%. Cooper Rush has been doing just fine for him, though. But, man, the Eagles are impressive. I'm going Philadelphia here.
Just because I have to, I'm going Eagles as well. Sorry, I know I'm offending Cowboys fans, but
I don't blame you.
But with the Dak situation, in all honesty, Dallas's defense is so good right now, it doesn't really matter who's playing quarterback for them. You got a defense that strong. You don't have to score a lot of points.
So there's our terrible 10 picks for this week. We'll see if I can maybe make a little bit of ground. Again, Chris leads the overall standings, 44-16. I am 32-28. Well, that's going to just about do it for us today. Chris, anything else you want to mention before we hit the road for the weekend?
Well, if you listen to the game, if you were there, if you watched live stream, it was a heartbreaker for the Bulldogs. But I'll just say, don't give up on this football team. They're going to bounce back. These young men are just great young men with great character. They compete. They work hard. Just some tough breaks last night. And I fully expect them to bounce back, get the win this Friday night against Florida, and just get re-energized and look forward to the postseason.
Yep, and still a very good chance to make a playoff run. I mean, this is going to be an 8-1 team who's going to have a home playoff game in the first round, and I'm excited to see what they can do. And really, it all depends on what the playoff seeds look like a week from tonight. But I'm excited for it, and really think this is a Bulldog team that's fun to watch. And we'll see how they play here in the next couple of weeks. Again, they'll host Florida at home for senior night this Friday night. So that's going to wrap things up for us here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show. Again, a big thanks to Sarah Haley and Arianna Watts for stopping by to talk about the Sunrise School Spirit coming up at the high school in 2 weeks on October 28th. Big thanks to J.C. Tinsley across the hall getting us on the air. For Chris Myers, I'm Cole Carter. Have a great weekend, sports fans.